Hey you guys, this is Josh Vision, and I'm here to give you my Season 1, Episode 1 review of Da Vinci's Demons. So this episode was really good. I like how so much was brought into this first episode from the jump. So for one, let's talk about the political landscape. Now, in terms of the political landscape, we have the Medici family, who are the top family in Florence, and there's a conflict between them and the Vatican / Rome, aka the Pope, essentially. So the Medici, aka Florence, they have an alliance with Milan, and the Vatican have an alliance with Naples. But early in the beginning of this episode, the Duke of Milan, Forza, is killed brutally by basically the agents of the Pope. So once this happens, this leaves the Medici family in Florence in a very difficult situation in which they're going to have to figure out a way on basically how to save face and show they're just as strong as ever, despite the loss of, quote unquote, their pig ally, Forza, the former Duke of Milan. So this was all Giuliano's idea, actually, to have basically a festival or a carnival of sorts to make sure that people can see that the Medici family are still strong as ever. So this leads us to young Leonardo da Vinci. Now, early in this episode, we meet Da Vinci. He's very charismatic. He's likable, but he does have his flaws. He is a bit vain. He is somewhat of an a-hole, but he still is likable. And we see how he talks to his apprentice Nico about why he loves Florence so much, and how with Florence, he's just another free-thinking heretic compared to other countries in which, if it's not as easy to be as free-thinking or as rebellious or thinking outside the box as it is in Florence compared to other places, essentially. And that's why he loves the chaos, the unpredictability of Florence. So for one, besides that, we see basically his attraction towards Lucrezia Donati, and Lucrezia Donati is basically the mistress of Lorenzo de' Medici. And we see throughout the episode them, you can tell they are attracted to each other, and it was just a matter of time before they eventually got it on. Now, bringing this back to the whole conflict, bringing this back basically essentially to how Da Vinci connects with the Medici problem when it comes to the allies. Da Vinci mentions to Lorenzo that they don't have any standing armies in Florence, and neither does Rome or the Vatican. Especially with Florence's situation with the Duke of Milan being murdered, and Rome still having their ally in Naples, not being affected at all. They don't have any murdered important people. So he was talking about how he should be basically in charge of the weaponry, creating the war weapons for Lorenzo de' Medici. So the reason why this is the case is the fact that Da Vinci feels that if he can become the weapon man, essentially, for the Medici family, that will allow him to do other experiments and get more material in terms of his other things that he wants to do, essentially. Another thing that should be talked about in this episode is the fact that Da Vinci is being dragged into this whole situation when it comes to the Book of Leaves. So apparently the Book of Leaves has very important knowledge, hidden knowledge, has been hidden from society from such a long, long time. So we meet this character called the Turk, who mentions this to Da Vinci, how he's a part of the Sons of Midrath, and that they are an ancient religious order that's basically before Christ, essentially, and how they want to preserve knowledge and spread it, but the Vatican wants to destroy knowledge and basically tamper with it. I believe he said that history, as you know, is a lie that's honed like a weapon for their usage, essentially. Another thing that's discovered is the fact that Da Vinci's mother was actually a part, or actually is a part, of this Sons of Midrath, and that she wasn't a servant girl, she was a slave from Constantinople, and that she will meet Da Vinci, that Da Vinci will eventually meet up with her again and see her again once he completes the task is necessary, for being a part of this membership. And Da Vinci's like, well, how did I become a part of this membership to begin with? He's like, you don't remember when he was in the cave? So basically in this episode, Da Vinci has quite a few flashbacks when he was a 14-year-old boy and he went to this cave. And his mind kind of blanks out about what actually happened in that case. So we see, or at least the guy named the character in the Turk mentions that Da Vinci probably suppressed his memory in his head. So he told Da Vinci to unsuppress it, essentially. So we see that Da Vinci actually came out the cave covered in blood. So he got like 90% of his memory back. We see that like this scary image of this thing, but then it just cuts out right there. So this was just a very interesting thing, especially when it came to the character of the Jew, who essentially had to die being the hangman, which was very interesting because Da Vinci pulled a card in which it said the hangman. And the Turk mentioned the fact that when the hangman said, while basically about to be hung, he was talking to Da Vinci directly, saying that I am a son of earth, star in heaven. I am thirsty. Let me drink from the fountain of memory. That was basically like a parting word to Da Vinci, since Da Vinci's now taking his place, essentially. He's now a member of this ancient order. So when it comes to Lucretia and Da Vinci, we see that Da Vinci and Lucretia actually do make love, like I mentioned before earlier in this review, and that Da Vinci told her that he basically knew why she liked him so much, and she said why, and he was like, because I was able to draw features of you in which you knew deep down in your soul that no one else knew except yourself, not even your lover or your husband knew. And Lucretia was like, the reason why you've been basically trying to find me is the fact that you probably loved me at first sight. Because why would you go through all this trouble, especially knowing that I'm the mistress of Lorenzo de' Medici, and also a wife to, my husband, essentially. So, besides that, another thing that should be noted is the fact that the Pope and his henchmen are trying to find the Book of Leaves, which connects in a way to what the Turks said about knowledge and how they want to hold back knowledge and destroy it, or at least tamper with it. So we meet this character named Riario, and he mentions how there's an agent in Florence that helps him, that kind of tells him about the circumstances of the Medici family and why they're doing this whole festival and the whole backlash and fear after the whole death of the Duke of Milan Forza. So it turns out that this double agent is actually Lucretia herself, and she mentions the fact how the Medici are actually stronger than they've ever been due to the fact that Leonardo da Vinci is in their camp, and he's also in leagues with the Sons of Midrith and the Turks and the Medici now, with him basically being the artist for Lucretia and essentially being possibly like the weapon creator for the Medici family. So Riario is interested by this, and I believe the Pope is as well. He's like, you think he can be corrupted? And Lucretia's like, well, what if he isn't? He said, well, he'll burn just like everybody else in hellfire when they try to go at the Vatican. So I believe, you guys, that's pretty much it important that actually happened in this episode. Another thing that should be noted, like little things that I probably missed out that just coming to mind, is the fact that Da Vinci's really addicted to what it seems to be opium. We see that he also has temper problems. He throws temper tantrums like a child when things don't go his way, especially when it came to the whole construction of the bird, because he was in charge of creating the mechanical bird for the festival. He's trying to find a way on how to get the calibrations right and how to make sure it'll be able to fly for a certain amount of time without the glider, and basically be worthy of the 30 Florences, which he kind of bragged that it would be to Giuliano and company. Another thing that should be noted is the fact that Lorenzo and his father don't have the best of relationships. We see that actually his father is actually a notary, which is a very prominent position, in Renaissance Florence. That means he's very close, and a very good friend of the Medici family. We see that Da Vinci actually got beat down by saving the Turk midway through the episode by his father's men. Not really his father's men, but basically by Lorenzo's men. But they were under the charge of, they were basically taking orders from Lorenzo's dad. So that's very interesting. Basically how their relationship is going to evolve, or at least how they're going to show their relationship for the duration of season 1. So besides that, I think that's it. So yeah. Now keep in mind, a lot of things happen in this episode. This is my first review of the show, so I might have missed some things, but I promise you I will get better at it. So yeah. Thank you guys for watching my review of Da Vinci's Demons. Have a great one. I'll give this episode like an 8.5 out of 10. Adios.